Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. My name is Lily, aka lilykoi. I make videos about holistic health and wellness, from diet and lifestyle factors to emotional and spiritual factors as well. If any of that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button, ding the bell, stay up to date with my videos so you won't miss out. Last week, a fellow vegan YouTuber, High Carb Hannah, put out a video about body dysmorphia and her current struggle with body dysmorphia and how it's affecting her emotional, mental well-being. And we have a lot of crossover as far as people who watch our channel, and several people who had watched her video then came to my YouTube and Instagram and asked questions, you know, do I experience body dysmorphia? What is my opinion on this? And I watched her video, and as I watched it, it felt really familiar, and this is something that has affected me for over half my life. And these kinds of issues are so personal and cerebral and hard to define and put into a box that I feel like it's one of those topics that really benefits from having plenty of commentary around it. So adding to that commentary. First of all, body dysmorphia, for those of you who aren't aware, is when what you see when you look in the mirror, or what you see in pictures, or what you see when you look down at your body is different from what reality is. Body dysmorphia can be not only about yourself, but about other people as well. An example of that is that regularly on my videos, I have people comment that I look like an anorexic twig who needs to eat a sandwich. And on the exact same video, I'll also get comments about how fat and overweight and disgusting I look. And so you can see the body dysmorphia that those two people have as well about me. And this happens a lot. So for those of you who have people in your life who comment about your weight, either regularly or sporadically, or people who seem to be obsessive about weight and they make comments about yours, definitely always don't listen to what they have to say, because perceptions are not trustworthy 100% of the time. But when you're dealing with body dysmorphia, your perception of yourself really starts to create how it's how you view yourself, and it creates your reality. It creates how you treat yourself, how you talk to yourself, how you think about yourself. And so it can turn into a really damaging pattern. Personally, I started dealing with body dysmorphia when I was 13. I just noticed that I was pudgy, and that in and of itself was a very scary realization for me, because I hadn't even realized it until one day it was black and white, and I realized it, and I went from seeing myself as someone who was fit and healthy and normal to then being someone who was fat. And the amount of anxiety and stress that created in my mind of thinking I've been fat all this time and I wasn't able to see it. My God, I can't trust my own perception. How am I going to deal with this? So I put myself onto diets, and I started exercising and reading stuff like Shape and Fitness magazines, and getting all of the dietary tips that those things give you, which is basically starve yourself and over exercise until you look like this girl who's been photoshopped. And so that's what I tried to do. And that's what I did, and it was fairly effective. Back then my metabolism was pretty healthy, and I just started crashing it into the ground with dietary restriction and over exercising. And at first it was really effective. I lost a lot of weight, but I always, no matter what, I always looked at my body and I saw, you gotta lose 15 or 20 more pounds. It didn't matter how much weight I lost. I always saw 15 to 20 more pounds of fat on my body that I had to lose. And I would look at myself in the mirror, I would look at pictures that were taken of me, and I would always see that 15 to 20 pounds that I still needed to lose. And I look back on those pictures now and I see that I was bordering on frighteningly thin. And this was back in the early 2000s, where being frighteningly thin was very much in vogue, literally. And so that was what I was always striving for. And that was what I had achieved, but I wasn't able to see that I had achieved it. I even remember getting on the scale and seeing a very low number that was associated with eating disorder weights, and still thinking, but I have to lose 15 or 20 pounds. I remember it didn't make any sense to me. But eventually, after all of the dieting and restricting, it caught up to me and I started binging uncontrollably on food. And that was when that cycle started, of taking in a huge amount of food and then trying to starve and over-exercise myself out of that. And then slowly putting on weight and gaining weight. And again, it got to, I would look in the mirror and I'd be like, okay, well, I still look all right. But then I would see a picture of myself and I would look to, in my eyes, I would look massive and disgusting. And I remember seeing pictures of myself and being so mortified and horrified that I just had to be like, oh yeah, great, and slowly back away from whoever I was spending time with and just like go to my room and cry and, you know, write a list of all of the ways that I was going to undo this and starve myself back into submission, back into the body shape that I wanted. And I can look at those pictures that were so horrifying to me. I can look at them now and I can see a normal, healthy looking 14 or 15-year-old body. And I'm appalled that I could have ever thought that that was overweight or unhealthy or unhealthfully large. And so, because my perception of myself became so unreliable, I started weighing myself obsessively, you know, 2 or 3 times a day. I started measuring my body parts to get an idea of how big they were and to use all of those numbers in addition to what I felt like I looked like when I looked in the mirror to fuel my obsession and to fuel my willpower to be able to starve myself, which I didn't think at the time was very little food, because Shape, Fitness, Cosmopolitan magazines were all saying 1,200 to 1,600 to 1,800 calories a day. That's what you should be eating. And that's what I was trying to eat. I also started obsessively looking at celebrities to try to figure out which body my body looked like. I used to go online and obsessively try to find, you know, like, what are the body measurements of this model? What are the body measurements of this actress? So that I could compare it to my body measurements and get some sort of frame of reference for what my body looked like, because I realized that I had no idea. And this continued into my early 20s, into the time when I really got overcome by the bulimia and the starvation and oscillating back and forth and trying to reach for something that was a semblance of like a healthy diet, or trying to take care of myself as a guise for make myself skinny finally, and going through all of that and rapidly gaining 40, 45 pounds and not being able to really see that either. You know, the dysmorphia went both ways. There were times when I would try to convince myself that I was smaller than I was. There were times when I would see pictures of myself and I would be like, that's so much bigger than I thought I was. And I felt like I was going crazy. But I was so lost inside my own head and trying to reach and cling to ideas or other people's perceptions, because I always assumed that other people's perceptions were more reliable than my own. Trying to look at the photoshopped pictures of models and celebrities and wrap my head around where I and my body fit into this. But then when I got to that point of, I can't do this anymore, we talked about it in the weight loss series updates that I did recently. When I got to that point, when I promised myself that I'd take care of myself regardless of my weight, I also decided that now was the time that I wasn't going to obsess about trying to figure out what my body looked like anymore. I would purposefully look in the mirror, or when I would see pictures of myself, I would purposefully say, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you look like in this. It doesn't matter if the camera added 20 pounds, or if it's a bad angle, or if the mirror is lying to you, or if your brain doesn't work. It doesn't matter. I'm going to love you regardless. I'm gonna feed you regardless. I'm going to let you rest regardless. This doesn't matter anymore. Your false perceptions don't matter. They don't matter. They're not gonna change the way I'm gonna live my life. And you know, that was over 5 years ago, and my body has changed a lot since then. I've lost a lot of body fat, I've gained a lot of muscle, and thus there has been a weight loss. The shape of me has changed, and I've become stable for the first time in my life. The last 3 years have been the most stable years of my life as far as food consumption and exercise and my body shape and weight. There have been no drastic changes. And yet I still sit here and I can only say that I have a suspicion at best of what my body looks like. You know, I make videos of myself and my body, which I feel like has probably given me a better idea of what I do actually look like, but making those videos, especially in the early days, it was a lot of filming myself and then seeing myself on camera and being horrified and mortified that that was what my body looked like, and me crying, just deleting all the videos and sobbing for a while and then trying to let it go and coming back the next day and saying, I'm gonna make the video anyway and I'm gonna accept what I look like in that video. But I feel like going through that process over the last 3 years of filming myself regularly has probably given me a better idea of what my body looks like. But my perception of my body is also affected by the other media that I'm taking in and looking at. So if I go on Instagram and I look at Fitspiration, or I look at an account like Alexis Ren, or I look at all of the other Instagrammers or fitness models that are probably using Photoshop. And I say that not to try to take away from, you know, their beauty or their success, but to just acknowledge that I've seen so many pictures of people on Instagram who have said, this is what this image looked like when it was photoshopped and I posted it, but this was the real image, and seeing the striking difference and being able to finally answer questions like, why isn't my rib cage that small? Or why aren't my hips that curvy? Or why doesn't my butt look like that when I work out the same way? When I get those images into my mind and then those become the filter for which I look at myself, though my body is slowly changing and getting more lean and fit, still yet, that is not what my body looks like. My body does not look like a well-lit, photoshopped fitness model. It's never going to, because God help me, I can't figure out how to use Photoshop. I tried, and I also cried about that. So in the last 5 years of just trying to take really good care of myself, loving myself regardless of my body shape, what I've tried to do as far as the body dysmorphia goes is just accept that I don't know what I look like, and my perception is very fluid. My perception is very prone to being affected by outside media. My perception is very affected by my own thought processes. My perception has the capacity to get tunnel vision and zero in on specific flaws on my body and magnify those flaws to the point that I'm not able to see my body. I've also had to ask questions like, well, who does perceive my body accurately? What is the right perception? Because everyone's perceptions are skewed in the same ways, by media, by the way they think about themselves, by the way they want their bodies to look or think their bodies should look. Everyone's perception is affected in the same way that mine is, whether or not they accept that. And ironically, just like the only way I was able to permanently lose weight was to give up on really trying to lose weight, the only way that I have, to the best of my ability within the constraints that perception places on us, the only way that I have been able to view my body in a realistic way was to let go of trying so hard to figure out what my body looked like. Humor has been so necessary, especially in those moments where you catch a video of yourself or you get that like horrible selfie that your friend takes with you and they look great and you don't, but they still post it, and then you just want to die inside for a while. Taking those moments and trying and just letting myself make light of it, you know, and just saying, dear God, that's not what I thought I looked like in that outfit. There must be something wrong with the camera. And being really aware that technology does change the way that our bodies look. You know, I'm filming this on a fairly wide-angled lens, which makes me look slimmer. Does it make me look more slim than I am in real life? I have no idea. But if I shot this on an even more wide-angle lens, I would look even more compressed. If I shot it on a different lens, I would probably look wider. And that's something to remember too. Lenses, lighting, Photoshop matters. But I know that I was in this situation, and I realize that many of you are probably in this situation or have been in this situation where you think like, but I need to keep track of my body because, you know, I have gained a lot of weight before without realizing it. And so I know many people try to keep track of their progress by weighing themselves regularly or taking their body measurements or the way that they look in the mirror and using that as a way of kind of charting their progress or their lack of progress or their backsliding. And, you know, the question becomes, if my perception is not trustworthy, or if I am prone to becoming obsessed with the scale, obsessed with body measurements, then how do I keep track of myself? How do I make sure that I'm making progress? And I understand that mindset. I don't necessarily think that it's bad, but it is another symptom of putting conditions on yourself and conditions on whether or not you're going to accept yourself. Because what happens if you're not making progress? What happens if you do gain some weight? What happens if your thigh gets thicker? Is you keeping track of that measurement going to change how you feel about yourself? Probably. I mean, I don't think I would be immune to that, to having that mean something. Even now, you know, I weigh myself very sporadically, but it's like I get on the scale and I expect to see a certain number, and if it's more, that still means something to me. That still in a small way affects the way I'm feeling and thinking about myself. And even though I've gotten really good at seeing that number, that unexpected number, and saying, well, that it is what it is. It doesn't mean anything, really. I still feel great and I still love myself. But getting to that point has been a really long process. And if what you're doing is promising to love yourself and take care of yourself and accept yourself, and if you're promising to listen to your body and honor what it needs regardless of weight or measurements or how you look in the mirror, then I really do have to say that there's no reason to keep track of your body in any way. I'm not saying it's bad if you choose to do that. I'm just saying be aware of how it changes how you perceive yourself and how you choose to accept yourself, how you treat yourself. It's a slippery slope. And I also do want to add in, because I am very much a closeted woo-woo spiritual mumbo-jumbo person, and I believe that my rational mind is a woo-woo tool for me to navigate the woo-woo world with. They work together, they're not enemies. And when I look at body dysmorphia through that scope, I kind of have to sit back and laugh and say, you clever, hilarious, ironic universe, taking away our ability to perceive what we look like and thus putting a fatal flaw in the measuring stick by which we use to flagellate ourselves or praise ourselves with, of subscribing to the dichotomy of good or bad, and you have taken that away from us through body dysmorphia so that we are now powerless to perceive ourselves, and we are now thus less able to make judgments about ourselves. If that's not a message from the great beyond, I don't know what is. Because I tell you what, measuring yourself and being happy with it, or measuring yourself and being upset about it, both of those are impediments to true contentment and to true stability and to true self-acceptance regardless of circumstance. Unconditional love, you guys. Pathological body dysmorphia cannot operate within unconditional love and acceptance. And I would love to finish with that sentence, but I know it'll cause problems. So just to clarify, that doesn't mean that someone like me, who I feel like I'm getting pretty darn close to like unconditional self-acceptance and self-love, I can still love myself unconditionally and have no idea what my body really looks like. I still have body dysmorphia. It's not pathological body dysmorphia. It's not affecting my life and the way that I feel about myself. It is outside the realm of unconditional love. It's something I operate with. It doesn't affect how I feel. If my body dysmorphia, if my disability to perceive myself affected how I felt about myself, that would no longer be unconditionally loving. Does that make sense? So I'm not sure if realistically I'll ever be able to, get rid of the body dysmorphia. I'm not sure that anyone on this planet doesn't have body dysmorphia, because we all have perceptions of ourselves that may or may not be in alignment with reality, and who chooses what reality is anyway? Like, whose masterful perception is the one that we accept as true? Yeah, deep questions to ponder about life. So how can I love and accept myself and feel contentment and ease through that process, with that being the way that we are capable of perceiving ourselves and the world around us? Okay, I've covered all of the bullet points that I wanted to, and I feel like this could go on forever, so I'm gonna cut myself off. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this has perhaps been beneficial to you in some way. If it's got your mind chewing on some stuff, thumbs up is always appreciated. I love your all's comments down below. Share this with anyone who you think would benefit. And until next time, make better choices for yourself. No one will ever do it for you. And take really, really good care. I will see you all very, very soon. Bye.